Hi there, this is my Lesson 7 Resource Library Part 3. My name is Rachel Sines, and this resource library is intended for early childhood educators working with dual language learners in pre-K programs. Children in pre-K programs are ages 3 to 5 years old. I selected this as my intended audience because I am currently a pre-K teacher, and before this course I had very little knowledge of dual language learners, so I wanted to focus on a topic that would give me more knowledge that would be helpful in my current role as a pre-K teacher. Next, I have my resource library linked here, so if you click on the title, it will take you directly to that link. And then I listed 3 areas that I included from my resource library that I wanted to focus on because I think that they are important in my future career. The first area that I focus on is the dual language learners and early childhood education demographics. Educators and family members need to understand dual language learner development and the many cognitive benefits to being bilingual. Many people may be unaware of the benefits of being bilingual. These resources can be useful for them. As an educator, you need to know what dual language learners need to be successful in the classroom. Next, I focused on family and community engagement. Family and community engagement is very important for the children, the family, and the educators. Family engagement will help the children develop and grow. As educators, we can learn from the families and communities more about their children and their cultures, beliefs, and languages. And then the last area that I focused on was child screenings and assessments. Screenings and assessments are very important and beneficial for the child's growth and development. For the educators to be able to support the child, they need to be equipped with the proper tools and knowledge of the children. Screening and assessments will help them understand where the child stands academically and if they may need any more guidance. For the first topic of dual language learners and early childhood education demographics, I've included an explanation. Children who are dual language learners are learning more than one language at a time, or they are learning a second language while continuing to develop in the first language. Early childhood education settings should provide developmentally, culturally, and linguistically appropriate learning experiences for the children. Educators need to recognize bilingualism and biliteracy as strengths. Individuals who are bilingual switch between two different language systems. And then on this slide, I included a quote from the course materials to emphasize why this area is so important. 11.5 million dual language learner children ages birth to 8 years old are living in the U.S. Dual language learners are the fastest growing population of young children in the U.S. And so I think this quote really shows exactly why it's so important to focus on dual language learners, as they are the fastest growing population. And if you think about, there's already 11.5 million children that are birth to 8 years old living in the US. That's a lot of kids. On this slide, I have an overview of my 3 resources that I included for dual language learners and early childhood education demographics. Each source is linked directly to the article or blog post that I'm talking about, and then I included what type of source it is. So the first source is an ebook that I found in the ASU library. The link that I provided will take you directly to a PDF, so you don't have to log into the ASU library. The second source is a blog post, and the third source is a PDF that comes from a book called The American Educator book. It's about 3 pages pulled from that book. For my resource spotlight, I focused on the dual language supports for dual language learners, exploring preschool classroom instructional supports for dual language learners' early learning outcomes. I included this photo here, which is a picture of the front cover of the book that this comes from. For my synopsis, I have that this resource was peer-reviewed by Anne, Anna, Deborah, Gigi, and April. They are all part of the Tulsa Seed study team. This article talks about the background of dual language learners in the preschool, supporting dual language learners, specific instructional supports in current studies, hypotheses, methods, and results about dual language learners' specific preschool classroom instructional supports. This article is focused on the instructional supports in preschool classrooms that promote dual language learners' early learning skills. There are 2 instructional dimensions of the preschool classroom expected to support dual language learners' learning: support for home language and support for English acquisition. For annotation, I said, this article is relevant to the topic of dual language learners because it focuses on the classroom support for dual language learners, English language skill, quantitative reasoning skills assessed in English, and home language skills at the end of the preschool year. This article is current and up to date, and it has been peer-reviewed in 2021, which means the author's work was reviewed by experts in the field to ensure academic scientific quality. Besides being peer-reviewed, there are also 65 references that were used in this article. And for application, I will use this resource in my future work with dual language learners in early childhood education settings because it provides ways to support dual language learners in the preschool setting. Some of the ways of how teachers develop concepts, including whether they use analysis and reasoning, provide opportunities for children to be creative, integrate concepts, and make connections to the real world. Teachers should also model the language and use open-ended questions and repeating responses. I will use the information learned in this article to adjust my classroom. I learned that the students feel more supported and like school more in classrooms where the teacher supports their home language. Next, I have family and community engagement. Connecting the child's family and community can support their learnings in the classroom. The resources in this area will help you learn ways to engage with families and communities of dual language learners, give knowledge on how to connect the family and community for dual language learners, and explain the benefits of dual language learners in the early childhood education setting. Educators should develop good relationships with the families through conversations and engagement. It is important for dual language learners to be in inclusive environments where they feel comfortable, safe, and supported. You should encourage families to use their language with children from birth, tell stories and sing songs, share books and stories, talk about their traditions and culture, and show that you value their home language in your classroom. So for this one, I included a quote that comes from the article, What Parents Have to Teach Us About Their Dual Language Children. Parents have a significant influence over the children's language development and later academic success. Creating a space for family knowledge, beliefs, and concerns about their children's language use and development at home gives teachers crucial insight into meeting the individual needs of dual language learners in early childhood settings. Families' insight into code switching, family language strategies, the sequence of second language acquisition, social and emotional development, and language transference and development help teachers create a welcoming and supportive setting for the children who are dual language learners. And then I included an overview of the 3 resources I have for family and community engagement. Again, all 3 of these sources are directly linked in their titles. The first source is the website, the second one being a blog post, and the third one is a PDF that comes from a pilot study. And that PDF that comes from a pilot study is also the one that I wanted to spotlight. So research brief, engaging dual language learner families in their children's early education. And then I included a picture of the first page of that PDF. This resource was written by Lisa White, Jennifer, Ileana, Deborah, Alejandra, Karen, and Heather. It was published in 2022 by the American Institutes for Research. In this article, it was found that most families want their children to become bilingual, and most families support children's learning at home. Overall, it was found that early childhood education programs in California place a high value on bilingualism and that they support young learners in many ways. For annotation, I have, in 2015, First 5 California committed $20 million for dual language learner pilot study to support effective and scalable strategies in early learning and care programs to promote learning and development for dual language learners and their families. The study is being conducted by AIR and its partners with guidance from the Dual Language Learner Input Group. This resource is relevant because it is up to date and talks about engaging dual language learner families with their child's early education. And then for application, I will use this resource in my current work with dual language learners in early childhood education settings because it gives information on engaging the families. This article shares information about how programs can support families. This article also shares what messages programs conveyed to families about dual language learners and the value of bilingualism. This is important for me as a preschool teacher because I need to know how the school relays information to the families about their child being bilingual or a dual language learner. And then for child screenings and assessments, screenings give a snapshot of whether the child's development is on track, and assessments are an ongoing process that includes observation and provides information about development over time. Screenings are conducted in collaboration with families to determine the child's potential risk for developmental, behavioral, mono, language, social, cognitive, and emotional delays. There are four main purposes for the assessing of young children: assessments to support learning, assessments for identification of special needs, assessments for program evaluation and monitoring trends, and high-stakes accountability assessments used to make decisions about individual children, teachers, classroom, or programs. And my quote from the course materials is, assess dual language learner children in both their home language and English to determine the full extent of each child's linguistic competencies. Continue to assess in both the child's home language and English over time so that growth over time can be assessed for both languages. And again, I have an overview of my 3 resources for child screenings and assessments, and they are all linked in the titles. The first one being a website, the second resource a blog post, and the third resource is a website with video. I really like this third resource because of the videos. I think it is helpful to sometimes be able to watch a video and listen to somebody talk about a topic rather than just read about it. And then for my resource spotlight, I did the more meaningful assessment for dual language learners. For my synopsis, I said this blog post was written by Janie on April 29, 2016. New America posted this blog, and their story is that they are dedicated to renewing the promise of America by continuing their quest to realize our nation's highest ideals. Honestly, confronting the challenges caused by rapid technological and social change and seizing opportunity those changes create. In this blog post, you will read a lot of information about assessments of dual language learner development pathways. The blog post was posted a few years ago, but the information in the post is still relevant. The post talks about dual language learners and their academic performance. There are many debates on assessments and if they should be provided in the child's home language or just in English. These debates are discussed in this article. This post is part of the New America's Dual Language Learners nationwide group. And the trajectory of language learning is dependent on so many factors. There's no one-size-fits-all standard on how dual language learners should be progressed. For application, I will use this resource to understand more information about assessments for dual language learners. This blog shares information about both opinions on different assessments for dual language learners. I can read about both sides of the debate and gather an understanding of the pros and cons of assessments that are different for dual language learners. I can also use this blog post to further my knowledge about poverty and how it is often a factor of language and how it is used at home. Thank you, and I appreciate all your feedback or any questions you guys leave on my PowerPoint. And then lastly, I have my resources listed. Thank you so much.